Hello, boys, girls, people of all different orientations and sexualities, and welcome back to another Doctor Who review. But today is today's going to be a little bit of a different review, as it's Christmas, of course. So sit back, relax, as we take you on a ride through a winter's night. But before getting into all of that, I'd just like to make a special mention to the next video that will be coming in the series, which is going to be our review of The Church on Ruby Road, which is coming out tomorrow. So, or a couple of hours, depending on where you are. So, keep an eye out for that brilliant review that will be coming out. And until then, let's hop straight into the video. So, let's start at the very beginning. Doctor Who has been known for its Christmas specials over the years. And the very first Christmas special we ever truly got was the Christmas Invasion. Yes, an interesting story about the Doctor's new face and an enemy who is trying to control the human race and enslave them from the stars after locating and finding a probe in a capsule. This story has a fantastic storyline and is a great introduction for anyone who has seen David Tennant as the Doctor. I highly recommend it, and as this is kind of a speed run of reviews, I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10. Next up on our Doctor Who Christmas list is Voyage of the Damned. The Doctor arrives on a spaceship, which conveniently is the exact replica of the Titanic, and it is sitting over the Earth throughout Christmas. When all of a sudden, all the robots turn on the staff and the guests, and the Doctor goes down into the basement to find out what is happening, only to find out that the reason the Titanic is crashing is all on an insurance scam. The fact that the owner and the maker of the Titanic has lost a lot of money through the cruises over the years, so he has decided that the only way to outweigh his competition is to invite all of his employers into the ship and let it crash over Earth on Christmas night in his attempt to create absolute havoc and carnage on this peaceful night. This story was brilliant. It features Kylie Minogue, and it also features a bunch of other great cameo characters. The late, great Bernard Cribbins even appears as a brief cameo at a stall when the Doctor goes down to Earth with the guests from the Titanic on the silent Christmas night. For a story, it's absolutely fantastic, although lo and behold, I don't like to hold a grudge, but I'm gonna have to mark this down 1 point on the basis that two of my favourite characters get killed off. So that makes this a 9 out of 10. That's just my personal opinion. And let's get on to the next one. Next up, we have The Runaway Bride, a great story which introduces Catherine Tate to our screens at her height of comedy. Catherine Tate is introduced to us as a bride who has been kidnapped and is now trying to get run back to her wedding and get married, only to find out that the rest of her guests from her wedding have already gone to the after party and started enjoying themselves. Then, to find out exactly what happened to her, her and her partner Lance head downstairs to discover a giant chamber full of particles. These particles, when activated, can cause someone to teleport from one place to the next. Then is revealed that a giant Rachnos has been playing a game with Donna the whole time, getting Lance to poison her essentially to bring her to that moment and that place, all because Lance wants revenge
over Donna, because he believes that she's annoying. Um, the Doctor saves the day and blows up the Rachnos and destroys the Rachnos ship, along with the remaining Rachnos in the process, even after already giving them an ultimatum to leave the planet. This story was fantastic. I can't flaw it. I'm gonna have to give it a 10 out of 10. um, and just quick side note, apologies to everyone watching this video. I have technically put this in the wrong order. It goes Christmas Invasion, Runaway Bride, Voyage of the Damned. So please don't think that whatever order I'm putting any of these in is the correct order. So that aside, let's get to the next one. Next up on our list is The Next Doctor, a great Christmas special about the Doctor meeting a man called Jackson Lake who has lost his memories. Jackson has been fighting off the Cybermen ever since and is known to everyone in Victorian England as the Doctor. This is because he picked up a photo stamp that had all the Doctor's memories on it from the database of the Cybermen when they came to take his wife and his child away. He never does find his wife, but he does find his son. And the Doctor, and with the help of the Doctor, he reunites with his son and takes down the Cybermen once and for all. This is a great story, although I do find it a shame that Jackson Lake is not the Doctor, or at least a incarnation of the Doctor. The actor who plays him is absolutely phenomenal, and the storyline does so much credit to him. So for this reason, I'm going to have to give this a 7 out of 10. Now, on to the next one. Next up on our list is The End of Time itself for Gallifrey. Sorry, I always get into that mood with this episode. But yes, The End of Time is a brilliant two-parter which is set over Christmas, where the world is filled with nightmares and people don't know why. People are scared, and a cult has brought back the Master to life. The Doctor is in search of the Master, and alongside this, a conspiracy is echoing in the dark. Soon the Doctor learns in the second half of the episode that the Time Lords have dropped a white pointed star to Earth in order to return. But in doing so, they believe in bringing the Time War through with them and destroying the human race, eradicating their planet and their people in the process. So the Master turns on the Time Lords, knowing that the Time Lords will not cure him of the beating drum in his head, and he sends them back into the void and back into the time lock. The Doctor, struggling and still on his last legs, finds Bernard Cribbins' Wilfred Mott trapped inside of a radiation-filled room. He opens the door and lets Bernard out and suffers the consequence, taking in all the radiation in the process and letting it all fade away. After this, the Doctor says to Wilf that he must go and get his reward. In this sense, he means that he must go back and meet all the people he has met over his life and watch out for them one last time, if it's the last way he gets to see them. The Doctor then returns to his TARDIS and regenerates into the next incarnation, who is played by Matt Smith. This story is fantastic. The dynamic, the story, the tension, and the tears, so true in David Tennant's eyes. You can feel absolutely gripped in by this story, and I highly recommend it. For this reason, I give it a 10 out of 10.
And next up on our Doctor Who list, we have A Christmas Carol. Yes, he was hard and sharp as flint, and as solitary as an oyster. That's right, Doctor Who adapted your favourite Christmas story, A Christmas Carol. Scrooge. Know me better, man. Yes, the Doctor lands on a planet and finds a
man called Caskin. Apologies, correct me in the comments, guys. But Caskin and his father live on this planet, which used to be just a planet. Then a bunch of colonists landed their ship and unbuilt the ship and built their town out of the remaining parts. Caskin's father was a rich, multi-million, billion, let's just say gadillion, and he had a lot of money, so he decided to make a machine that could control the clouds. His father was a very angry man towards the end, and he believed that people should pay him to keep their children or anyone in a capsule, especially the unwell, just to see their family on Christmas night. Cass was very against this. He believed everyone should enjoy Christmas. But after a good few arguments with his father, he soon begins to believe what his father thinks. And so, a girl called Abigail, a very good old friend of his, who is ill and only has so many Christmases left, is locked away forever in a vault. The doctor turns up and tries to teach him the error of his ways, teach him not to be such a Scrooge. He decides to convince him to open the vault one last time and free Abigail so that she may see her family one more time. One more Christmas. This story is brilliant. Its elements, its adaptation to A Christmas Carol, its way of playing with the ghosts of Christmas future, past and present is fantastic. I can't flaunt it, and again, it's going to have to be another 10 out of 10.
Next up, we have The Snowmen, a story about a brooding doctor coming to terms with the loss of his friends, whilst also getting caught up in a conspiracy about snow. A bar governess one night comes across an angry-looking snowman, and the doctor and Strax end up in her path. The doctor tells Strax to wipe her memory, but, sadly, Strax wiped his own memory in the process. Sorry, there's no way you can't laugh about that, but yes, Strax essentially wipes his own memory in the process, and so the doctor leaves Clara with her memories, and he wanders off back into the night, up onto his cloud. And then Miss Clara goes back to her job. She then goes to her side job as a nanny and finds out that a little girl is having nightmares. And so she calls upon Madame Vastra for help, in hope that they can contact the doctor and get him to investigate. The doctor, still brooding on the cloud, at first is hesitant to help, but then he hears the word pond, and so he decides to investigate. When he arrives at the house, he realizes that the old governess has been frozen underneath, and that something or someone is using this to their advantage, just so they can take over on Christmas night. Soon he learns that a wealthy man who has been given extraterrestrial knowledge by a giant glass of snow that he met when he was a kid is using the snowmen of London to take over. He has already fed his workers to them, and now he intends to take over all of Christmas. The doctor recognizes the snow that is talking and realizes that it is indeed the great intelligence that he once met in the London Underground back in his second incarnation. This is an interesting story because it's a different way of bringing back the great intelligence. The great intelligence is a magnificent villain, but sadly I'm going to have to mark this
down as a 7, even though I absolutely loved Clara's governess and most of the story. I just feel like the stakes weren't high enough for a great intelligence story. So for this reason, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10.
And next up, we have Time of the Doctor.
And now it's time for one last battle, like all your other selves. 11's hours over now, the clock are striking 12s. The Doctor finds himself on the edge of existence, hollowed over a planet that he doesn't know or doesn't understand, and is wondering why all of creation has come to the planet. As the story adapts, we learn that Clara is destined on trying to impress her family, and so she calls up the Doctor in order to figure out how to cook a turkey. She puts the turkey in the time machine, and the pair go off back to the planet to find out exactly what's wrong. As the story develops even more, we find out that the planet is under siege from all of creation, as one question is being asked on repeat: Doctor who? Doctor who? Doctor who? And so the Doctor realizes that it's the Time Lords. The Doctor decides to stay on the planet, and soon learns that the name of the planet is Trenzalore. And when he realizes this, he realizes that this must be his final battle. His battlefield, his grave. And so he decides to stay for Christmas, which is the name of the town. Conveniently. But yes, he stays in the town called Christmas and defends the planet from all alien attacks. And soon he finds himself allied with the Silence and many other creatures in order to make sure that the town stays in one piece. He sends Clara away as a mercy, hoping that she will never see or never have to deal with what he has to endure. He grows old, and soon even Handles kicks in, his power low and unable to sustain so many years. So the Doctor is left alone, and the Daleks take this as an advantage, try and destroy the Doctor and end his life. So Clara runs downstairs and begs for the Doctor's life to the Time Lords, telling them that they got it wrong and that his name is the Doctor. The Time Lords then send the Doctor a burst of regeneration energy, and so the Doctor begins his new cycle, destroying the Dalek ship in the process and returning to the TARDIS one last time in hopes that he will be ready for the next life. This is a fantastic, great send-off to Matt Smith and his character, and for this reason, I'm going to have to give this story a 9 out of 10. Its structure, its development is incredible. Next up, we have Last Christmas, a fantastically hilarious comedic Christmas episode which features Nick Frost, Dan Starkey, and Nathan McNullen. And all three of their characters are phenomenal. Nick Frost is incredibly brilliant as Santa Claus, and Dan Starkey and Nathan McNullen are hilarious, getting all their little quips in as the elves. As the story progresses, we learn that there is a base under siege on Christmas night in the North Pole. Or was it the South Pole? Well, it's somewhere out there, and Santa has asked the Doctor and Clara to investigate, to figure out exactly what's going wrong. But as the story progresses, we find out that all of what's happening is a dream. The sleigh, the elves, Santa, are they really real? Well, in this case, we never really find out. All we know is that everybody in the story is sleeping. They've been attacked by dream crabs, a creature from another planet which leaves people in a dream state. making them imagine what they want to imagine. For instance, Clara, in one of her dream states, sees Danny because she loves Danny and wishes that he was still around, and especially for Christmas. And for the Doctor, he also jumps into the dream, hoping that he can get Clara out. The story plays on a lot of stigma, like, for instance, people believing in dreams that if you can't get out of a dream, is it still a dream? It also plays on the fact that if you don't rescue someone, will they grow old? And for all these factors, I think they're brilliant, they're comedic, but as a Christmas story, I feel like slightly it felt a bit off course in certain areas. The actors were phenomenal. It's just the fact that I got to the end of the episode, and even now when I still watch it, I'm not too sure whether the end of the episode is a dream or not. And I think that's a brilliant concept. It's just very confusing when it's supposed to be a basis of, right, they've woken up now. And for this reason, I will give it an 8 out of 10. Next up, we have the Husbands of RiverSong. The Doctor arrives on a planet and gets a knock on the door by a young fellow called Nardo. Nardo, a fantastic character, very comedic, takes him to a palace ship where King Hydroflax is in great pain and needs a surgeon to remove a diamond from his skull. The Doctor then bumps into RiverSong, who claims to be the wife of King Hydroflax. And so, rather than remove the diamond, the pair decide to nick his head. Can't believe I'm even saying that. They nick the king's head and run off to a space cafe. Where on the way, the Doctor makes a big grand gesture of being shocked by his own TARDIS, that River conveniently chooses to nick in order to get to the spaceport. Once they get to the cafe, they try to make an extraction of the king's head, and they try and remove the diamond in order to make payment. It doesn't go quite to plan, as everyone on the ship is an imposter and has been waiting for them. And so the waiter makes a big statement about the River being in love with the Doctor. River points out that she could be in love with a sunrise, but doesn't mean that it will gaze back at her. And so the story develops to then kill everybody on the ship, and the wreckage recovery man finds a diamond, which he uses to build a calf on the planet Darillium. This is a beautiful send-off to the character of RiverSong, as we finally get to see her moment on Darillium with the singing towers, her and the Doctor gazing, and a night that lasts 24 years. This story is brilliant. The comedy between the pair is brilliant, and the payoff is exquisite. And for this reason, I give it a 10 out of 10. Next up, for all you Superman fans, we have Dr. Mysterio. Yes, Dr. Mysterio, an interesting Christmas episode about a reporter who is conveniently so much like Lois Lane, and a young man who by day is a nanny and by night is a superhero fighting vigilante. The Doctor lands in New York in, I would like to say, the 80s or something, and late 80s, maybe 90s, and meets a young man who is very poorly. He is building a machine on the roof, and the young man thinks that he is Santa Claus, so he leaves milk and cookies. The Doctor eats the milk and cookies after being let in through the window after hanging off the ledge by accident. And the young man and him go up to the roof in order to light up a machine of the Doctor's. When they get to the roof, Grant coughs, and so the Doctor gives him a glass of water from his pocket, and he claims that the pockets are bigger on the inside. Grant then is given a little diamond star, and Grant decides to swallow it. The Doctor asks for the star back later on, and then finds out that Grant has swallowed it, which Grant doesn't realise that the star grants powers. And so Grant has always wanted to be like Superman, and he starts to fly. But later on in life, this proves to be a very annoying thing for Grant, as he starts to be able to see through people's clothes, and also ends up having the same powers as Superman, that he can see people's skeletons. This frightens him, and so he tries for the rest of his life to stay away from people. As the story progresses, we find out that the person he is a nanny for is no other than the girl that he has fallen in love with. He tries to live a double life and tries to give her an interview with the ghost. And it goes pretty well at first, and then she realizes and admits to the ghost that she is in love with Grant. Grant then reveals himself to her, and the city ends up under threat from an alien species that has been trying to capture Grant's brain because they believe it to be a potential asset for their organization. The Doctor intervenes and he destroys the alien force, sending them back into the stars and away once and for all. But then he also leaves Grant with a word of wisdom to only use those powers when necessary and never to use them for evil. The story as a whole is absolutely fantastic. It really, really has the core element of comic book beauty. And Grant, the ghost, who is so much like Superman, is fantastic. And for that reason, I give it a 9 out of 10. And last but very not least, Twice Upon a Time. The Doctor refuses to regenerate, and so he comes into contact with his past self, his very first incarnation of the Doctor. And so, the pair set off on an adventure, as they find out that a World War I veteran has been placed out of time, and a entity called Testimony is after them. The Doctor and himself go off and go to the edge of the universe, trying to discover answers. Meanwhile, Testimony has infiltrated their TARDIS in the form of Bill Potts, the Doctor's previous companion, who he lost to the Cybermen. And so, the pair end up on Skaro. And whilst one Doctor is up a tower, watching a monitor through a Dalek eyepiece, the other is sitting outside the TARDIS, pondering on what is happening. There is good, and there is evil. I left Gallifrey to answer a question of my own. Why does good prevail? Good is in itself not a very wise survival technique. Evil should, therefore, always prevail. So why does it not? And so Bill states back to him, maybe there's just a bloke A bloke? Maybe there's just a bloke going through time and space, putting all the things that are wrong right. Uh, that would be very nice indeed, young lady, but life is not a fairy tale, the doctor says back to her. And so the two ponder, and soon the doctor realizes that Bill is not Bill at all, but Testimony. Elsewhere, the other doctor is standing up in the tower, and he learns that Testimony are simply going throughout time and space, scanning people for their memories and their identities to keep them in a glass and preserve their life. It's not it's not even an evil plan, says the doctor. I don't know what to do when it's not an evil plan. And so he heads back and tells Bill that he knows that she's an imposter. And so they return to Testimony in hopes that the World War One soldier will be returned to his rightful time and place. And so he goes back to the trench. But, lucky for him, at this point in time, on that exact day, there would be an armistice. And people on Christmas Day would come together and stop fighting. For once, they would just stop and celebrate. And so the two doctors parted way. The first doctor regenerates in his TARDIS, back in the Arctic, waiting for Polly and Ben to find him. And the latest incarnation of the Doctor also goes back to his TARDIS and regenerates, as he is finally ready. I've got a few things to say to you first, Doctor. First of all, never be cruel or cowardly. Never ever eat pears. Love. Hate is always foolish, and love is always wise. Run fast, be kind. And so the Doctor regenerates into Jodie Whittaker. This story is a great send-off for Peter Capaldi's Doctor. It not only sees him face his darkest hour and his greatest challenge, but it also sees him battling the concept of change. Because many people find change scary. And it can be. But it can also be good. And so accepting that change is a great way to move forward. So for this reason, I give this episode a 10 out of 10. Thank you everyone for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this little speed run through Christmas specials, and I will see you in the next Doctor Who review. Goodbye for now, and stay beautiful. And to all you Whovians out there, one day I shall come back. Yes, I shall come back. Until then, no regrets, no tears, no anxieties. Just go forth in all your beliefs and prove to me that I am not mistaken in mine. Goodbye, my friends, and a very merry
Hello,
Christmas.
ladies and gents, welcome back. Sorry, little bonus thing here. I know I said the last one was the last, but obviously not yet. So, The Widow and the Wardrobe. The Doctor lands in 1914 or something, and he comes across a family that are looking for a place to stay at Christmas. Their mother is feeling rather lonely, but still wants to make her kids have the best Christmas they can have, even after their father went missing through the war. So the Doctor offers them a place to stay, but he states that there's only one thing they mustn't do while staying in the house, and that's to go through the big present under the Christmas tree. But, like all curious kids do, they don't listen and they decide to go through. Once they get over to the other side, they find themselves in a winter wonderland with acid rain and dangerous creatures made of wood. Their mother is scared and petrified straight, and so is the doctor when he soon discovers that they've been through the present, a little tear in time. And so, with the power of the tree gods, they find a way of bringing their father home for Christmas. This story is fabulous. It is a great way of expressing family and tradition, and it's also a great way of basically just bringing all the story together and the characters in one place and helping them enjoy the joy of Christmas. And for that reason, I give this a 10 out of 10. Apologies again, I'll try not to do this in future, but yes, have a happy Christmas.
Thank you.